There is a story we have been telling ourselves for decades, a comfortable, reassuring fable about the darkest objects in the known universe. We whisper it in textbooks and planetarium shows. We paint it across the covers of popular science magazines. The story goes like this: a black hole is the final word. It is the universe writing a period at the end of a sentence, the cosmos slamming a door that can never again be opened. Matter falls inward, light falls inward, information falls inward, and all of it is crushed without mercy into a dimensionless point of infinite density where the laws of physics themselves are ground into silence. The end. It is a seductive story. It is also almost certainly wrong. Not wrong in a minor, technical, quibbling sense, wrong in the deepest possible way, wrong the way a sailor is wrong when he looks at the horizon and concludes the ocean simply stops there. The mathematics underneath the surface of this story, the actual unforgiving geometrical machinery of general relativity, does not describe a dead end. It describes something that should terrify and electrify us in equal measure. It describes a threshold, a violent, reality-warping, geometry-shredding gateway where the fabric of space-time itself, under pressures so extreme that our intuitions are completely useless, may be forced to do something extraordinary. It may puncture, it may bridge, it may connect our universe through the absolute bottom of a gravitational abyss to something else entirely, something alien, something new, another universe. This is not speculation dressed in the costume of science. This is what the equations actually say. Imagine a ship. Not a sleek modern vessel, but something old, wooden, fragile in a way that makes the ocean feel enormous and hostile. The crew has sailed too close to a maelstrom at the edge of a chart where the cartographers have simply written, "Here the world ends." The water is moving with a kind of terrifying, indifferent purpose, spiraling inward with a momentum that no amount of rowing can defeat. The sailors are certain of what awaits them. The vortex will pull them down, the pressure will build, the hull will crack, and they will be smashed against the cold, unyielding bedrock of the ocean floor. This is their geometry. This is their intuition. The funnel has a bottom, and the bottom is annihilation. But the ocean does not care about their intuition. What if the water, compressed by forces beyond anything the sailors have experienced, does not find a solid floor? What if the mathematics of fluid dynamics under those extreme pressures does not permit a termination point? What if the spiral does not end, but instead narrows with such ferocious intensity that the water bursts through a microscopic channel, a tunnel of unimaginable pressure bored through what they believed was solid stone, and erupts on the other side as a blinding, thunderous geyser into a completely separate ocean, disconnected from theirs, hidden from theirs, governed by conditions they cannot imagine from the deck of their doomed ship? The maelstrom was never a death sentence. It was a transit. And the sailors were too committed to their own intuition to see it. A black hole is this maelstrom, and the mathematics of space-time curvature is the fluid dynamics that refuses to let the spiral simply terminate. In 1935, Albert Einstein and Nathan Rosen sat down with the field equations of general relativity and did something that the comfortable textbook story never fully accounts for. They found, embedded directly within the mathematics, a structure, a bridge. When they analyzed the geometry of a black hole with absolute rigor, the equations did not describe a one-sided pit. They described a tube, a throat of curved spacetime connecting two separate regions, two potentially distinct patches of the cosmic fabric. This is not a feature that was added to the theory. It was not an assumption or a philosophical preference. It was extracted from the mathematics the way you extract a root from an equation. It was simply there, waiting inside the geometry. We call these structures Einstein-Rosen bridges. The rest of the world has taken to calling them wormholes, though that name flattens something genuinely staggering into something almost cute. The proper picture is far more violent and far more beautiful. Space-time, under the extreme curvature conditions at the heart of a black hole, is not merely bent. It is folded with such intensity that 2 points that appear separated by incomprehensible distances in ordinary three-dimensional space are, in the higher dimensional geometry of the full space-time manifold, pressed together at a throat of finite size. The distance between here and another universe, measured not through ordinary space but through the fabric itself, can in principle collapse to something traversable. The equations demand it. The geometry insists. What Einstein and Rosen found was the mathematical skeleton of a door. But there is a further complication, and this is where the physics becomes genuinely astonishing. The black holes we have been imagining, the perfectly spherical, non-rotating, idealized Schwarzschild black holes of introductory physics courses, are almost certainly not the black holes that nature actually produces. In the real universe, every object of significant mass carries angular momentum. Stars rotate. When they collapse, they carry that rotation inward, amplifying it as the radius shrinks, the same way a figure skater accelerates when she pulls her arms to her chest. The resulting black hole does not simply sit there, it spins. It spins with a ferocity that would be incomprehensible if translated into any human-scale context. And a spinning black hole is a profoundly different animal. In 1963, the mathematician Kerr solved the Einstein field equations for a rotating mass and produced what is now called the Kerr metric. It is one of the most important and least discussed solutions in all of theoretical physics. What Kerr found was that the singularity inside a rotating black hole is not a point. A perfectly spherical singularity is what you get from a perfectly spherical, perfectly non-rotating collapse. But introduce angular momentum, introduce the spin that every real black hole in the observable universe almost certainly possesses, and the singularity cannot maintain that geometry. The centrifugal dynamics of the rotation, translated into the language of curved spacetime, spread the singularity out. They flatten it, they spin it into a ring. A ring singularity is an infinitely thin, infinitely dense loop existing at the geometric center of a rotating black hole. Now, consider what this means for anything that falls in. With a point singularity, the situation is unambiguous. Everything converges on that point. Every trajectory through the interior leads to the same destination, and that destination is a location where the curvature of space-time becomes infinite and the concept of a continued trajectory loses all meaning. There is no through, there is only there. But a ring is not a point. A ring has a center. The Kerr metric, when followed with mathematical precision, describes something that should make every physicist pause in a kind of stunned silence. A trajectory that passes precisely through the center of the ring singularity, through the geometric hole of the loop, does not encounter infinite curvature. The mathematics of the Kerr solution, carried without approximation, without truncation to its full logical conclusion, describes a passage, not a comfortable or gentle one. The tidal forces and radiation environments involved would be catastrophic by any ordinary measure, but the geometry itself does not terminate. The trajectory continues, and where it continues to is not another region of our universe. The Kerr metric describes a passage into a region with different physical characteristics, potentially a different space-time continuum entirely, connected to ours through the ring as a gateway. The spinning black hole is not a dead end. It is a door with a very specific, very precise, very geometrically demanding lock. This brings us to the third truth, and perhaps the most unsettling one, which involves not just where things go when they enter a black hole, but what the conservation laws of physics force us to conclude about the ultimate fate of all that consumed matter and energy and information. Physics has a principle so foundational that violating it would require us to discard not just quantum mechanics, but our entire framework of physical law. Information cannot be destroyed, not lost, not hidden indefinitely, but genuinely destroyed. The quantum state of a physical system, the complete description of every particle, every spin, every position, every momentum encoded in the wave function, cannot simply cease to exist. It can be scrambled. It can be transformed. It can be rendered so complex and inaccessible that recovering it would be a computational task beyond any technology we can imagine. But it cannot be annihilated. A black hole swallows matter. A black hole swallows radiation. A black hole swallows, in principle, the complete quantum mechanical description of everything that has ever crossed its horizon. And somewhere, The conservation of information demands all of that must persist. One of the most compelling frameworks for understanding where it goes comes from the combination of general relativity with quantum cosmological thinking. If the information and energy absorbed by a black hole cannot simply terminate at a singularity, then the singularity cannot be the end of the story. The extreme concentration of matter and energy at that point, viewed through the lens of quantum gravity, generates conditions that look remarkably, chillingly like the conditions that produced our own universe in the earliest fractions of a second after the Big Bang. The densities are comparable. The energy scales are comparable. The geometrical conditions, in a theory where quantum effects modify the classical singularity, may produce something comparable to a moment of rapid, explosive expansion. What if the singularity is not the bottom of an abyss, but the seed of a new cosmos? The white hole is the theoretical partner object to a black hole, appearing naturally in the maximally extended solution of the Einstein field equations. While a black hole is a region from which nothing can escape, a white hole is a region into which nothing can enter. Matter and energy pour outward from it with the same inexorable one-way force that a black hole uses to pull things in. A white hole is, in the most literal geometrical sense, a black hole run in reverse. And in the full, untruncated geometry of a connected Einstein-Rosen bridge, a black hole in one region of spacetime is the gravitational twin of a white hole in another region entirely. If this picture holds even approximately, then every black hole in our universe may be the umbilical cord of a new cosmic birth, a connection through the deepest possible gravitational geometry to an expanding region of space-time on the other side, erupting outward, seeding itself with the transferred matter and information, building its own stars and its own physics and its own eventual complexity. Our universe may itself have been born from exactly this process, a black hole in some prior space-time crossing a threshold that our mathematics struggles to describe and flowering outward into everything we have ever observed. There is a fractal of creation embedded in this picture. Black holes giving birth to universes that contain black holes that give birth to further universes, nested and connected through the throat of Einstein-Rosen bridges across a higher dimensional cosmic architecture that no map could ever fully represent. It is not a tidy picture. It is not a comfortable picture. It is a picture that strips away every comforting illusion about cosmic closure and replaces it with something far more awe-inspiring and far more demanding of us as thinkers. And here is what strikes me as the most profound thing of all. Understanding this, accepting the possibility that black holes are not endings but passages, not tombs but gateways, does not diminish our universe. It does not make our sun feel smaller or our planet feel less remarkable, or our brief, improbable existence as conscious beings feel less meaningful. It does precisely the opposite. It situates us within a cosmos so extravagant in its geometry, so relentless in its mathematical insistence on complexity and continuation, that the very act of comprehending even a fraction of it is a monumental achievement. We are made of atoms forged in stars that are themselves held in orbit around a galaxy that sits at one address in a cosmic web that may, if the mathematics is followed without flinching, be one of an uncountable number of universes connected through gravitational throats we will likely never physically traverse. And yet we have done something that no amount of physical travel could accomplish more thoroughly. We have extended our understanding through those throats. We have followed the equations to their logical conclusions. We have looked into the absolute dark and found, written in the language of curved space-time and quantum information, something far more extraordinary than darkness. We found doors.